Japan, the land of the rising sun. Georgia, always on our minds. As we look around, we see so many things that bring Japan and Georgia closer together. Georgia is the home of peaches, pecans, Coca-Cola, Delta, UPS, and Aflac. It's also home to YKK, Murata, Toto, and Panasonic. 2010 represents the 30-year anniversary of the JapanAmerica Society of Georgia, a nonprofit organization with the mission to promote mutual understanding between the people of Japan and Georgia through business, cultural exchange, education, and social networking. This is the story of the cultural and economic impact Japan has had in Georgia, and the role that the JapanAmerica Society of Georgia played in building the friendship between the people of Japan and Georgia. Among a number of pioneers that helped Georgia reach out to Japan was former Georgia Governor Carl Sanders. In November of 1966, he established a sister state relationship between Georgia and the prefecture of Kagoshima.
We sent a delegation of people to Kagoshima, some from the Department of Agriculture and some from the Chamber and all. And they came back with a rousing recommendation. So I got the General Assembly to pass a bill to create the sister state with Japan.
The link to Kagoshima directed Japanese attention to Georgia and paved the way for regular visits between Georgians and Japanese.
During one of the Japan Southeast Association meetings in Japan, the society and a few other individuals went to Kagoshima. And when we got off the airplane, there were hundreds of Japanese children, and they began to sing Georgia songs. You could not find a dry eye among anyone. In fact, we could have used lots of handkerchief for the men as well as the ladies. That was very special, but the evening was spectacular. They had a show of koto players, 6 to 8 as I recall. And they played traditional Japanese music, and they were wonderful. And toward the end of the evening, they broke into Georgia on My Mind.
Maturing as an advanced industrial state, Japan's exports to the U.S. increased dramatically. In 1973, then-Governor Jimmy Carter encouraged Japanese investment to the state by opening a Georgia Trade and Investment Development Office in Tokyo.
Other states have put offices in Japan, in Tokyo, but through changes in administration, they have pulled back, closed down. Georgia is one of the few states, I don't know how many there are who have maintained that presence, but it's really made a difference in the commitment shown to Japan, and it's been reciprocated with the commitment that Japanese companies have shown to the state. Real important legacy, though, of Governor Carter and President Carter.
With the Atlanta airport as a major draw, Georgia was evolving into the transportation hub of the Southeast.
It was all about raising the economic well-being of Georgia people. That's what it was all about, the building of a great airport. The most often mentioned reason why a company will invest in Georgia or in Atlanta was air service. And we found this to be true with the international companies, especially Japan. We knew that if we could get direct service and direct flights, that investment would follow, and it certainly did.
Delta Airlines saw the huge benefits in having a Delta connection with Japan and Asia.
Well, at the time Japan Airlines began to fly here and Delta began to look at that opportunity, we really wanted to expand into Asia, and obviously Japan was the most logical destination. What we found every time we would start a new international flight, you would see the business opportunity just almost quadruple. And I use that term quadruple because that was typically the multiplier effect that you saw with new service to a new international city. And I can name a lot of different cities where we saw that come true, and Japan and Tokyo obviously gave us that opportunity.
Other assets that drew Japanese manufacturers to Georgia were a highly motivated workforce, raw materials, and low land costs. YKK and Murata were the first Japanese manufacturing companies to settle in the state. In 1972, a YKK delegation met Governor Jimmy Carter and one of his assistants, Cloyd Hall, who was originally from the city of Macon. The delegation was introduced to many Macon officials, solidifying both the business and personal relationships.
From that time, a wonderful relationship was developed in Macon, and more importantly, I think, between the founder of YKK, Tadao Yoshida, and Governor Carter, who became President Carter. Governor Carter really appreciated Mr. Yoshida's philosophy, the cycle of goodness, and that sort of, their hearts met at that point, I think, and that was a lifelong friendship for Mr. Yoshida, between Mr. Yoshida and President Carter. And so YKK came to Macon, and it was very centrally located from a business standpoint near the port of Savannah. It was also a great distribution area for the entire southeastern United States. So it worked out well from a business standpoint and certainly from a community side as well.
In April of 1974, ties between Japan and Georgia strengthened when the Consulate General's office in Atlanta was established, with Kazuo Chiba serving as its first Consul General. The Atlanta Consulate covers 5 southeastern states and continues to promote U.S.-Japan relations with the society.
Well, the JapanAmerica Society of Georgia plays a vital role in strengthening the goodwill between Japanese and Georgians, and the activities and groups sponsored by the society allow people to interact and creating a strong bond. Well, the Consulate General of Japan in Atlanta highly appreciates its relationship with the JapanAmerica Society of Georgia. Together, we teach Georgians about Japan, its traditions and culture, and we are very successful.
In that same year, the Georgia Nihongo Gakko, or the Georgia Japanese Language School, was created as a source of Japanese language education for Japanese children living in Georgia. Starting with only 9 students, the school has grown to over 400 students today. The opening of the school led to the launch of the Japanese Chamber of Commerce of Georgia in the early 1980s to assist its member companies in a variety of ways, including activities in the community and business arena.
Right now, in this economic situation, I want to put number 1 priority is help or the support to improve the business environment for members. How we can support business environment. That is, I feel, that's very important mission. And in order to do that, we need to be a very strong organization and a very good activity in our organization.
In 1975, Governor George Busbee extended the achievements of former Governor Jimmy Carter by changing state laws, making Georgia attractive for international investment. Governor Busbee particularly liked the Japanese community.
I think his sincerity and his sincere interest in the history of Japan and the Japanese people was the glue that made it all happen. And he decided that was where the future was, and he wanted Japanese companies in Georgia and went after them. And he was very, very successful. And from that, he also was the best economic development governor I think we've had. And he looked at a much bigger picture, not just Georgia, but he felt like if we could get Japanese companies anywhere in the Southeast, it would help us, because most of them would have to fly in and out of Atlanta. So it wasn't completely altruistic on his part.
Governor Busbee took the lead in creating the Southeast U.S., or SUS Japan Association. The organization was established to promote both business and camaraderie between Japan and its member states. The association has held over 30 annual joint meetings, drawing over 500 participants a year, with the venue alternating between a city in the southeastern U.S. and Japan.
Governor Busby and Mr. Hasegawa-san with Sumitomo Chemical were visionaries as it related to the Japanese future in this part of the U.S. They understood, Governor Busby understood that if we could convince the Japanese companies to move businesses, employers to this part of the U.S., then Georgia would at least get its fair share. And it worked very well over the next 3 decades.
Culturally, the Japan-Georgia relationship strengthened in 1978 when a group of Japanese school children from the Suzuki School of Violin came to Atlanta to perform for former Atlanta Mayor Maynard Jackson and other community leaders. The Suzuki School of Violin is now located throughout the U.S. At the end of the 1970s, there were approximately 1,000 Japanese citizens residing in Georgia and about 55 Japanese companies located throughout the state, including the rural areas.
What they did in many cases, they established plants in smaller towns around the state, developed close relationships in those communities, and I think really uplifted the state to a large degree in connection with the overall economic development plan. I'll also say that I think the Japanese had a very big impact in awakening Georgians to the existence of Asia, to the opportunities of Asia. And once Georgians started realizing that there were opportunities and that positive relationships could come from as far away as Japan, I think that really elevated the spirit of the economic development community, of those involved in economic development of the state.
The Japanese presence in Georgia grew substantially, and the 1980s, 90s, and decades beyond promised further economic and cultural growth.
Georgia's had a long history with Japan and Japanese investment, and in the recent history, it's certainly focused around our industrial and economic development opportunities between this state and Japan, dating back to the 1960s easily, with Governor Carl Sanders and leaders like Governor Busby and those since that have really laid the groundwork for us having a relationship with Japan. It's the #1 investor nation in the state of Georgia.
In 1979, a group of Georgians from the business and academic fields formed a planning committee to create a JapanAmerica Society of Georgia with the mission of increasing the knowledge of Japanese society, culture, and public affairs among Georgia residents. The organization also would extend hospitality to the Japanese people residing in Georgia by sharing the history and traditions of the state. The planning committee consisted of Oglethorpe University's George Waldner, First National Bank's Alan Judd, the Coca-Cola Company's Michael McMullen, and Ann Godsey. George Waldner shopped the idea around of establishing a JapanAmerica Society of Georgia for nearly 2 years and without any substantive support.
Finally, when I went to see Ian Wilson of the Coca-Cola Company, Mr. Wilson immediately saw the validity of the concept and became a supporter of it. And so it was really getting the horsepower of the Coca-Cola Company behind the concept, which gave it some traction in the American business community. And then the Japanese Consul General, who at that time was Mr. Chiba, the first Consul General here in Atlanta, was very enthusiastic about it as well.
In June of 1980, the founding meeting of the JapanAmerica Society of Georgia's Board of Directors took place in Atlanta. It was decided to incorporate the organization and to elect Ian Wilson as chairman, Fred Chaouqui as vice chairman, Raymond Riddle as treasurer, and George Waldner as executive director. Governor Busby and then Consul General Kawade were elected honorary co-chairmen. Shortly after the incorporation of the society, Sam Ayub, senior executive vice president of the Coca-Cola Company, took over as chairman and is credited with growing the organization significantly.
And he was an extraordinary man in every sense of the word. He had a wonderful interest in international business and people overseas. He ended up as chief financial officer of the Coca-Cola Company and did an extraordinary amount for us and in fact for Japan. When he took over as chairman of Japan-American Society of Georgia, he was as enthusiastic about that as he was about everything that he did for the company, and really quite an extraordinary man in every sense of the word, and a wonderful mentor, I should say.
The First National Bank of Atlanta, the oldest bank in the Southeast, saw the opportunity of being involved with Japan and became the first financial institution to join the society.
Well, we were introduced to the concept by the Coca-Cola Company, which, you know, is an international company, and they are very far-seeing. And we were interested in Asia, and this was an opportunity for us to be on the ground floor in a outreach program to the Japanese. So when we heard about it, we were naturally interested in joining, and did.
The leading figure in the Japanese business community to sponsor the formation of the Japan-America Society of Georgia was Fred Chaouqui, president of Murata Electronics North America, one of the original Japanese manufacturing investors in Georgia.
He's a great boss. He's got his own charm and attract everybody. So whoever works, Japanese or American, everybody loved him. And then he introduced me to this Japan-American Society of Georgia, and I started, he promoted me to the president of Murata, North America, and I was much too busy at the time for the company's business, and he was going out trying to help Japan-American Society of Georgia. And later, when I got a little, started to have a little more time, then he put me on to Japan-America Society.
In 1982, Georgia Governor Carl Sanders became chairman and immediately pulled in Bob Broadwater, one of the original people to introduce Coca-Cola to Japan.
He retired, and when he retired, I went to him and said, if you'll take the job, let's create a permanent position for the society. And I got him to agree to do that. Thereafter, whenever we needed funds and whenever we needed programs, I could call up Bob, and he would be at the office, and we had a relationship. And so we were able to provide a much broader bit of information and relationship with the Japanese.
Following the lead of the YKK Corporation and Murata Electronics, Japanese investment in Georgia began to increase.
At that time, the state of Georgia has a very good incentive for the hiring and also training the employee for the manufacturing plant. That is the big reason for Toto to come here. And also another reason is there is lots of the raw material for our products, such as cowling and ball clay, feldspar, silica sand, that type of the material we can have around this state. So that is the main reason we come here.
Large Japanese firms such as the Bank of Tokyo, Hitachi, Kubota, Panasonic, Toto, Toyo Tire, Yamaha, and many others joined the ranks.
Georgia is actually has a lot of Kubota dealers, and our business is really strong in this area, so that was one reason. Another reason, since we are an international company, a good transportation network was essential with the Hartsfield Airport, plus a very good central location for most of our key distributors and dealers. Georgia proved to be a great location for business. I mean, there's many reasons. Another reason would be that we wanted somewhere where we could find a good workforce.
You know, our product, Yamaha product, like golf car and water vehicle are quite big, size. So the logistic is very important. So when we assemble the product, we need the place close to the market, and also the labor, human resources is very important, and also the good logistic port like Savannah and Charleston in Georgia State.
Japanese investment in Georgia grew even more significantly when JETRO established its Atlanta office.
JETRO stems from a Japan External Trade Organization, which is non-profit governmental trade promotion agency, which promote business relationship with Japan and the rest of the world. And we have over 70 offices in 56 countries, and JETRO Atlanta is one of them, located here in 1985. And we basically introducing the Japanese market to Georgia company, and vice versa. Sometimes we invite Georgia company to Japan to make them understand the Japanese market.
Since its inception, the Society has consistently held programs promoting the growth of Japanese companies in Georgia, while also working with Georgia companies doing business with their Japanese counterparts.
You know, UPS is a global company. We serve over 200 territories and countries today, and you know, over the last decades, the world's gotten a lot smaller than it used to be. And our membership at the JapanAmerica Society of Georgia is a way for us to connect with one of the communities in the corporate office city of UPS, which is Atlanta, with a constituency in a country that we serve. So it's a great opportunity for us culturally and from a people point of view to maintain our contacts.
Society programs have created business and personal networking opportunities that have helped maintain strong ties between Japan and Georgia. No aspect of the U.S.-Japan relations has gone unexamined. Event speakers have included Ambassador Mike Mansfield, President Jimmy Carter, former Atlanta Mayor Maynard Jackson, Ambassador Andrew Young, Senator Johnny Isakson, and many more. The Society has organized numerous major events, and in 1989, Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs presented the Society with a citation for excellence in programming, the first time a JapanAmerica Society had received such an award. In 2010, the Society was again the recipient of the commendation from the Minister of Foreign Affairs for its continued effort in providing quality programs promoting U.S.-Japan relations. In the mid-1980s, the Society's Board of Directors created the Mike Mansfield Awards. This recognition honors an outstanding Japanese and Georgian who has worked tirelessly to promote the development of the growing friendship between Japan and Georgia. Steve Harris worked under Ambassador Mike Mansfield at the embassy in Tokyo in the late 1970s and says he can't think of a more fitting name for the award.
And that was so typical of Mike, who came to love Japan and to be regarded as a model ambassador to Japan, but also to help in any way he could to foster growing relationships, stronger relationships on a whole array of fronts, including not just business fronts, but he was very attuned to cultural exchanges and supporting Japanese education for expatriate children in Georgia and elsewhere.
Noteworthy Mike Mansfield Award winners include Governor Carl Sanders, Governor George Busbee, President Jimmy Carter, Ambassador Kazuo Chiba, Ambassador Andrew Young, Dan Amos, and the two most recent awardees, Glenn Cornell and Taizo Nishimuro. In 1987, the Society collaborated with the Consulate General of Japan in Atlanta to organize and send off the first participants of the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program known as JET from the Southeast. The JET program promotes international exchange in Japan by helping to improve foreign language education and developing international exchange at the community level. The 1990s continued to be noteworthy for the Society and Japan-Georgia relations. In June of 1990, former Prime Minister Toshiki Kaifu spoke at a Society dinner in Atlanta. In June of 1994, the visit of the Emperor and Empress of Japan to Atlanta was a crowning development of political ties between Japan and Georgia. After the decade of the 1990s, Japan faced historical economic problems, and many Japanese companies were withdrawing support from the society. However, under the leadership of Chairman John Bean, the society was kept afloat.
And there was a really committed core of folks who were on the board of directors, and we worked through the issues. We recognized that in order for the society to survive, that we had to offer value to the members, and we also realized we had to cut costs. We had to find new ways of raising money, and it really was a bit of an epiphany for all of us, really. Because we started looking around and we found really widespread support for the society that we had not tapped into previously.
While business and economic development are key components of the organization, the society also promotes the exchange of culture between Japan and Georgia. From the tea ceremony to grand kabuki, scores of events with society involvement have inspired an awareness of Japanese tradition. An introduction to Southern hospitality illustrates Georgia's culture while providing the backbone for a stronger relationship.
I personally think that Southerners identify better with Japanese because Southerners tend to go at things a little bit slower, a little more methodical, and not quite as abrupt as some people do. And that's the way the Japanese tend to like it. And so there's a bond there that I've noticed that makes it much easier to work within that scope.
The largest cultural program that the Society continues to be part of is Japan Fest, which was started in 1986 as a small picnic and field day for the Japanese community in Georgia. Today, Japan Fest has become the largest Japanese festival south of Washington, D.C. and east of Houston, Texas, drawing nearly 17,000 visitors every year. Education remains a primary focal point of the Society. The project of creating teaching material about Japan and visiting the classrooms has been implemented in Georgia's schools to provide students with a current and accurate picture of Japan. The interest in Japanese language and culture is evident as an increasing number of American students showcase their knowledge about Japan in the annual Japanese language competitions hosted by the Society, the Japanese Chamber of Commerce, the Consulate General of Japan, and the Georgia Association of Teachers of Japanese.
It's really exciting to see these college students, prepare their speeches and then deliver them in beautiful Japanese. And it's a great opportunity for them to engage in a little competition. And then we always have a great winner. And one year we featured the winner at one of our annual meetings, and it was exciting for the entire membership to kind of see the fruits of our labor.
The Society is also a part of the APCC, the Asian Pacific Children's Convention in Fukuoka, Atlanta's sister city. The APCC has been held annually since 1989, promoting cultural exchange and nurturing world peace through the interaction of children. Since 2004, when Atlanta and Fukuoka became sister cities, over 50 junior ambassadors and chaperones have been sent to Fukuoka for the 2-week exchange program. More importantly, the Society has focused on building genuine, caring friendships between Japanese and Americans through annual picnics, golf tournaments, and other social gatherings. The thousands of friendships created and nurtured over the years have helped close the gap of cultural misperceptions that might have existed.
And we usually, with the business, we mingle with the same industry people. But through the society, the diversified people are there. Different background, different profession, and we work with those people to accomplish the same goal. The programs, and each programs are not that big, but the collection of the programs is what we can offer to the society.
The Tomodachi Club of Georgia has been associated with the Society since 1981 and today it has over 65 members.
The main reason for Tomodachi, of course, is to foster friendship and cultural exchange among Japanese and American women, and we find that we can learn a lot from each other. And even though we all have, families and everything, it's interesting to understand how Japanese are with their families, and they like to come to American homes and see how American homes are.
To foster the needs of young adults, the Society's Young Professionals Group was established and now makes up the largest percentage of the individual membership.
The Young Professionals Group, they were established in October of 1996 to foster the needs of our younger members and our, young folks that wanted to get into the corporate world. We created an environment, a friendly environment for them to get experience in cultural exchange and business practices, and also develop social networking skills. And we've done all sorts of events, from speaker series to sporting events to Halloween parties to all sorts of ways to get both Japanese and American younger generation together.
The lasting Japan-Georgia friendships are clearly demonstrated in the creation of the Georgia Kai, or Japan-Georgia Society, in Tokyo by Japanese who returned home after their stay in Georgia but wanted to maintain their relationships and memories. Today, Georgia is known as a center of Japanese industry in the U.S. Southeast. Japanese-affiliated companies have invested $7.5 billion in Georgia, where close to 500 Japanese companies currently operate. Georgia has become the state with the fourth greatest number of Japanese corporations, and these companies together employ over 35,000 workers, making Japan the country that hires the most number of Americans in Georgia. On the other hand, Georgia's exports to Japan amounted to $1.4 billion, making Japan its fourth largest export market for the state. Looking ahead at the Society's future, there is still a great need to continue strengthening the bridge between Georgia and Japan.
I'm very privileged to be the chairman of the JapanAmerica Society as we celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Society. I know that I follow so many outstanding members who have made the Society to what it is today. I'm very proud to be the first woman chair, and as the first Japanese American chair, I think it's a great opportunity to bridge the relationship between Georgia and Japan.
Today, the JapanAmerica Society of Georgia has close to 750 members, and in the decades ahead, the organization will continue to foster understanding, communication, and friendship among Japanese and Georgians.
Well, I think the society plays a key role in people understanding each other's culture, specifically Japanese understanding American culture and Americans understand Japanese culture. If you understand that, then the business aspect works. But business alone doesn't really make it work. What really makes it work is camaraderie, understanding how people act, think, and then from there you can build on that. And that's where the society played an important role, and that's why I think it's so important to have Japan-American Society.
you.